Bullets were probably invented by some Chinese chud who couldn't just enjoy the fireworks because he kept thinking, okay, but this could be used against the Mongolians. Today, apart from the 500 cigarette adapter, there is no handheld weapon deadlier than a gun. And there are many types of guns and calibers. Some look cool, some look unethically bred, some are just patent slop. But the most common caliber used by both police and civilians is the 9mm. The efficacy of a bullet is measured by stopping power, aka how good a bullet is at stopping the target. A 9mm is described as having sufficient stopping power. You know, it's not an AR-15 or an infinity ray, but it's deadly enough. But Hollywood often misinterprets exactly how deadly. And so there are a lot of myths around what can stop a bullet. Today, we tell myth from truth and find what can and how to actually stop a bullet. Starting with being really fat. A morbidly obese person might have 5 to 8 inches of fat around their belly, but it's a myth that those few inches are enough to stop a bullet from hitting any vitals. Experts believe you would need at least 28 inches of fat. And yes, that's a lot of fat. Even the blubber of a bowhead whale is not that thick. But your mama is... Oh, snap. You might be thinking it's impossible for someone to become that fat. First of all, through God, anything is possible. Second, remember Graham, the perfect man in the eyes of the Australian Transport Accident Commission? Well, meet Gary, the bulletproof man. Every inch of him is covered in at least 20 inches of fat. And before you write your clever little comment, I have already sent an anonymous message to Pyrocynical that contains an image of Gary and Graham kissing, followed by my demands. Next. Again, it's a myth that a book can stop a bullet from hitting you. Realistically, we're looking at closer to 25 paperbacks, 15 hardcover books, or 50 Kindles, with any amount of books on them. So you should always have the entire Wheel of Time series on hand, or just one copy of Infinite Jest. In the latter case, the bullet will be too confused and just drop to the ground in shame. Bullet is stupid. Bullet is tired of flipping pages and cannot keep track of all the characters. Just make sure you don't have something like Atlas Shrugged at the top of the pile. That might just enrage the bullet further. Next. 2 blue mana. Pretty self-explanatory. Next. Ice. You would need around 25 inches of ice to stop a bullet. That's the size of an average ice box, or roughly 2 ice agents. Next. Puppy shields. You need around 15 puppies to stop a bullet. That being said, reliable statistics show that only 1% of people will kill a puppy for $1 billion, which...
I would, without a doubt, smash a puppy to death for 10 grand.
I wouldn't risk it. Next. Distraction. It's recommended to try and zigzag when you're being targeted by a gunman. Or maybe it isn't, I don't know, I saw it in a movie once. So I also think it's worth trying the following. Riddles, Instagram Reels, or Invisibility Cloak. Next. Oobleck. The physics teacher pulling up with a tub of cornstarch and hour farming their way into becoming a core memory really made most of us think, yeah, this is probably as a substance. Oobleck is good with slower blunt forces, but hardening is localized, and unlike Kevlar, it doesn't spread the bullet's energy over a large enough area. It can only slow down a bullet, and only a little bit better than water. And even though there are some attempts being made to combine Kevlar with sheer thickening fluids, Oobleck will not stop a bullet, unless the gunman is autistic. Oh shit, this is so neat, dude. Next, tire the bullet out. A bullet is tiny but carries a lot of energy. When it hits, it transfers the kinetic energy onto the target. To stop it or slow it down, we want to remove some of that energy. So, present the bullet with several job applications for entry-level positions. Oh, look at that. It's already lost all of its energy, entering the same resume details over and over. Shh, here, watch some Instagram Reels. Can't get fired if you don't find a job. Next. Run. Air resistance gradually removes energy from a bullet. After less than half a minute of being in the air, a bullet loses almost all of its forward kinetic energy. If you can't run for a mere 30 seconds, the bullet is the least of your problems. You gotta hit that Sisyphus simulator, bro. You gotta go to the gym, get that Chinese peptide shit in your ball. Alternatively, Category 5 Hurricane. A wise man once said, "You cannot catch a bullet unless you touch it first." Why stop a bullet when you can just push it off its course? If a gunman is 30 meters away, a bullet from a 9mm handgun will reach you in 0.08 seconds. If we want to deflect that bullet 5 centimeters, which should be enough to miss a vital organ, we would need wind speeds of about Hurricane Patricia. I know it's a bit unrealistic to expect a hurricane to manifest itself in front of a bullet, because hurricanes are rare. But I'm just the ideas kind, not a low-pressure area that draws in surrounding air. Next. Be a company that pretends to care but misses the point. Aww. Next. Stopping the bullet at the source. Can't fire bullets without guns, and the real problem with guns is that they look kinda cool. If we make guns look less cool, I bet we'll just go back to swords and embrace hardcore homosexuality. Next. Work smart, not hard. You don't really need to do any of this, because the bullet can never actually touch you at the atomic level. Atoms are surrounded by electron clouds that repel each other via electromagnetic force, so nothing ever fully touches. And when that bullet reaches you, it transfers its momentum but doesn't technically connect. It just violently shoves your atoms out of place, so you're actually fine. Finally, I've left the longest method for last, and the longest method is playing the long game. In the 80s, the Soviet Union soldiers in Afghanistan, thanks to some more opportunistic high-ranking officers, were not receiving enough rations. And while the corrupt officers were making some serious profit, the soldiers who had to buy extra food from local markets only had one thing worth anything: bullets. They knew the ammo they traded with merchants for food would later likely be sold to the Afghan Mujahideen, who were fighting against the Soviet-backed Afghan government. Every bullet they parted with would likely be coming back to them from the barrel of an enemy gun. How would they stop that from happening? Well, they made bullet soup. A product of a rumor which promised them that boiling bullets damages them beyond repair. Unfortunately, that did nothing, and realistically wouldn't work on any bullet made in the last few centuries. But bad execution doesn't mean it was a bad idea. A decade earlier, the American soldiers in Vietnam were doing something a little more effective with Project Eldest Son. They weren't boiling bullets. They were surreptitiously slipping the Vietnamese soldiers explosives masked as ammunition. It wasn't every bullet, it was just one in every few, and the material they used looked like gunpowder, but was 5 times more explosive. Sabotaging ammunition in this way isn't uncommon. The British were the first to do it in the 1890s. But what makes Project Eldest Son especially devious is the rumors and forged documents the US spread about defective Chinese weapons. Now, I mostly wanted to give you the slow story time just to say, historically, one of the best ways to stop a bullet is to turn a bullet into an exploding rifle. That was the end of the video. I hope you feel much safer knowing about all these very useful tips. And that was all. Okay, bye.